Well, good Friday afternoon. Hello, YouTube and WTOL 11 Plus. Thanks for joining in on this exclusive live stream right after our 12 o'clock newscast on air. Great way to break down some of the in-depth weather details as we look ahead towards that next weather impact. Hope you're staying safe and preferably staying indoors on this snowy start to the day. We're going to be talking about the weather impacts coming up later today, as well as a bitter cold feel that's on tap for your Saturday. So we're not totally out of the woods, not totally done with the snow just yet. I'm going to be looking at some of your comments here coming in on YouTube, and also you can watch us after the fact and leave those comments down below. And if you're tuning in on WTOL 11 Plus, great to have you with us. So we're going to be looking at some of those comments as they come in on this snowy start to the day, and we do have some additional weather impacts that we're expecting. I'm tracking an Arctic cold front, and that's going to be working through early this evening, right around 6 o'clock p.m. That is when we are going to start to feel a change in the weather. That Arctic front is going to make things very windy. Winds are going to be shifting to the northwest, and it's going to be blustery with 30 to even 35-mile-an-hour gusts, and there could be some additional snow showers. Now, the snow coupled with the wind is going to cause some brief reductions in visibility and possibly even a couple of snow squalls that are very short-lived. So into Saturday, it'll be turning bitterly cold, and that could allow for a few areas of refreezing, slick spots, and even black ice. So that weather impact is going to continue tonight and even into Saturday morning in the wake of the snowfall that we had today. Now, the good news is most of the roadways at this point are just wet, and temperatures are actually briefly going to be climbing above freezing. However, we do have some additional impacts with those evening bursts of snow, and it'll be turning windy and sharply colder. So I'm going to check in on some of your comments on our YouTube channel, and thanks for those tuning in on WTOL 11 Plus as well in this exclusive live stream at 12:30 p.m. on WTOL 11 Plus. We got a question asking how much snow did we get today? It was really a sharp cutoff, and the answer to that question largely depends on where you are tuning in from. We did get some isolated reports up to about 3 inches of snow west of Toledo. However, much of the metro missed out on the biggest impacts. Now, you notice, looking at our exclusive school impact hotspot map, right along the I-75 corridor from Toledo down towards Bowling Green and Findlay, green means on time. So across the metro, just about all those schools were on time. However, there was that sweet spot of some heavier snow south and west into Henry County, where some higher totals were reported, Fulton County, Williams and Defiance counties, and then also along the lakeshore, a number of school closings, including essentially all of Seneca County up towards Sandusky County as well. So the metro itself did not get a ton of snow. However, southwest, there was some heavier amounts. So as I mentioned, temperatures are briefly going to be climbing above freezing this afternoon. Now, the good part about that is, well, most of the roadways just going to be wet at that point with melting snow expected. Right now, we're at 27 in Toledo and Bowling Green. However, west of Toledo, starting to climb into Williams and Defiance counties. And that rise in temperatures, that'll at least make the road salt a little bit more effective in melting away some of that snowfall. So where's the snow on radar right now? Here's that batch of snow that we saw earlier today that you may have woken up to, seen those fine snowflakes flying from the sky. It is now clearing off into Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and southeastern Ohio. So we can say goodbye to that round of snow. However, we're not totally in the clear just yet. Now, I do urge you to grab that free WTOL 11 weather app. You can scan our QR code at the side of your screen, and that is always a really nice way to check radar from the palm of your hands. Certainly a good tool to have if you're going out to dinner tonight. If the kids have activities and you have events, you'll want to check radar, because here's that Arctic cold front. It's currently in northern lower Michigan, say up near Traverse City, and it is going to produce some windy weather with our next burst of snow. So that first round of snow is gone. However, that Arctic cold front, I think that's going to be arriving right around 5, 6, 7 o'clock p.m., and it'll come along with some gusty winds. So we're going to break down the hour by hour, and for those wondering how much additional accumulation to expect, I've got that as well. I'm going to see if there's any new comments coming in on our YouTube page, and it's good to have you all with us on this Friday afternoon. Hope your Friday's off to a good start and you're staying safe. Good to have you with us, Kayla Wells. How much did Toledo get? So, Kayla, we're going to get the official report from Toledo Express at about 5 5 to 5:15 p.m. So on WTOL 11 News, we're going to have the latest on that. But most of the metro just saw about a coating to 1 inch of snow accumulation. Good to have you with us from Bowling Green, and thank you for tuning in. Jason Welch wants to know with the next snow burst, how much is expected. So Jason, it's not going to be a ton of accumulation, just a dusting to half an inch. However, it could come down fairly heavily. So when does that snow burst arrive? Well, here's the Arctic cold front right around 5 o'clock p.m. Jason asked about snowfall amounts. You'll notice it's not a very big mass of snow, but some of these snow showers, they could contain some gusty winds and even some brief snow squall type characteristics. I really think it's north central Ohio from the lake shore into northeastern Ohio that is going to be seeing the biggest impacts with that burst of snow, especially near Cleveland. But for our viewing area, areas like Erie and Huron counties have the best chance to see those bursts of snow. So let's talk about additional snowfall totals. Honestly, nothing to write home about as far as amounts, just a dusting to half an inch with the highest totals from Sandusky down towards Norwalk, Port Clinton, Fremont, Tiffin, Fostoria, some of those southeastern counties. Across the metro, just about a dusting to a 1/10 of an inch. So it's really those southeastern locations that are going to be seeing the most additional snowfall. Not a ton of accumulation. However, the combination of the wind, the snow, and the drop in temperatures, that could cause some issues on the roads. So for the kids that did go to school on time, a couple flurries will be redeveloping, but I think for that 3 p.m. school bus, most of those roadways just going to be wet. So the wind is another big part of our weather story. We're going to be talking about those gusts that'll be ramping up into the afternoon. Winds are going to be shifting to the northwest as that front moves on through. So a northwest breeze, and we've got the clock here at about 6 o'clock p.m. Some of those gusts up to about 35 miles per hour are going to be possible, and that may even lead to a little bit of blowing snow, and any snow showers that do occur could drop visibility levels on the roadways. You'll notice even towards the lake shore, this latest computer model data shows some gusts over 40 miles an hour out towards Port Clinton. So that could contribute to some brief snow squalls, and the areas, like I said, that I'm the most concerned about seeing that reduced visibility and snow accumulation going to be south and east of Toledo. Not a ton of snow, but just enough that it could recoat those roadways. Even north and west, winds are still going to be ramping up into Williams and Defiance counties, back towards Henry and Fulton counties as well. So the wind, another big part of our weather story. So we've got the travel forecast up here. I'm going to be checking in on a few more of your YouTube comments. Keep leaving them. We're going to be live here for another 10 minutes or so on the WTOL 11 YouTube page, as well as on WTOL 11 Plus. So hopefully that answers your question, Jason, about additional snowfall amounts. We're just looking at an additional, let's say, dusting to half an inch of accumulation, but it's really the timing and the winds that could cause some issues with that burst of snow moving on through. So through the early afternoon, most of those roadways just going to be wet. We're actually going to be seeing a rise in temperatures, so we're briefly going to be climbing up to about 34 degrees. So that rise in temperatures should actually help improve road conditions. Now by the 5 o'clock commute, we'll call it a yellow light. Use caution on the roads. That is when some of the snow bursts are going to be moving on through between about 5, 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. And there is the chance that we even do see a few slick spots that'll be lingering into your Saturday morning. Now that could cause some issues with refreezing and possibly even a little bit of black ice as we see that drop in temperatures in an Arctic front sweeping on through the area. So planning out the rest of your day, still quiet through 1, 2, 3 o'clock p.m., picking the kids up from school, after school activities. No worries weather-wise for that. In fact, temperatures are going to be climbing up into the mid-30s. Now that Arctic front begins to arrive right around 5 o'clock p.m. That is when we could start to see some snow showers and some gusty winds. By 7 o'clock, we're back below freezing. By 9 p.m., we're at 22 degrees, and then at 11 p.m. down to the teens. So this late evening time frame, I think that is going to be when we start to see a little bit of ice that could be developing, and then overnight tonight temperatures start to plummet. In fact, we're going to be getting down to the single digits by daybreak tomorrow. So due to that drop in temperatures, there could be a little bit of refreezing and even some black ice that'll be possible. So our weather impact alert day continues for the rest of your Friday. Snow is going to return this evening, turning very breezy as that front pushes through the area. Into the weekend, Saturday is going to be a cold one, so you're going to want all the layers of winter clothes with a much colder feel. Single digits in the morning with those afternoon highs only going to be reaching the mid-teens. Now, as we head towards Super Bowl Sunday, a couple flurries, maybe a dusting at best, but really nothing in terms of widespread accumulation. And then as we head towards Monday, temperatures at least going to be closer to freezing in a partly sunny day. Now, for those not exactly loving this winter weather, how about a little bit of optimistic news? So the WTOL 11 weather team is kind of looking at some of the long-range trends, and we're continuing to see signs of a mid to late February thaw. Temperatures near 40 degrees possible by Valentine's Day weekend, and then towards late February as well. You'll notice the orange on the map shows you that much of the lower 48 United States are actually going to start to turn a little bit milder as we head towards mid to late February. It has been a historically cold start to winter, both December and January, around 6 degrees below average. However, that gradual thaw is going to be lifting our temperatures as we head towards the middle of the month. So we're going to get back to radar and snowfall amounts in just a bit, but I do want to take a quick peek at the 10-day forecast. And of course, we'll have the latest data coming up on air at 4, 5, and 6 on WTOL 11. So the weekend going to be a lot colder. Those smaller numbers are the low temperatures, single digits Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Couple flurries possible Super Bowl Sunday, but no major impacts expected. We finally climb above freezing on Tuesday, and that'll lead to some gradual melting of the snow. It is going to be a gradual thaw, not expected to be too abrupt with a lot of snowpack on the ground. And then as we head towards Wednesday, the chance for some liquid rain showers that'll be possible. Could see a rain-snow mix on Thursday. Now, one of the things we do keep an eye on this time of year is if there is an abrupt warm-up or strong winds that can cause some flooding concerns and even ice jams out on the lake. Thankfully, with this pattern, it is looking to be a gradual rise in temperatures that'll lift us up closer to 40 degrees by Valentine's Day weekend. As of now, Valentine's Day looking dry with temperatures in the mid-30s and 38 degrees by Sunday. So there's that 10-day forecast. I'll leave it up for a few more seconds for you, and I'm going to continue to check in on some of your comments coming in on our YouTube page as well as WTOL 11 Plus. Always good to have you on these alert days as we break down the weather forecast and the data a little more in depth than we have the time on air as well. So good to have you with us, Jim the Man. I see your comment there. Does February see more ice storms than January? Good question, Tim. So February is statistically our second snowiest month of the year. So we actually do see a decent amount of snow. January averages about 13 inches of snow, and then February averages closer to 10 inches. But as temperatures start to warm up, we do often find ourselves right on that fine line of that rain, snow, ice mix. So we've actually reached past the point of the winter bottom. In other words, the average temperature is starting to rise and our normal highs are up to about 36. So Tuesday's actually going to be the next chance that we have to be above average. But yeah, seeing that rain snow mix does become a little more commonplace as we head towards the middle of February. And also one of the things you'll notice is when it does snow later in the winter, it oftentimes melts a little bit sooner and doesn't stick quite as readily on the roads. And that largely has to do with the sun angle and the fact that we're seeing a little more daylight, now that our sunsets are closer to 6 o'clock p.m. So I'm going to get back to the radar image and then the snowfall totals one more time before we sign off this afternoon. And of course, we're going to have more coming up live on air at 4, 5, and 6 on WTOL 11, but on Plus and our YouTube page, always a great way to break down the forecast in a little bit more depth. So that first burst of snow that you may have woken up to, that is now exiting now towards West Virginia, Pittsburgh. The lake affects snow belt from Erie up towards Buffalo and then into central PA as well, seeing the impacts of that snow clearing out to the southeast. Radar is actually going to be fairly quiet for a couple more hours. However, that Arctic cold front looming to the northwest of us, it's currently working into central Michigan. You can actually see some of those snow showers inching towards areas like Gaylord and Alpena, and it's going to be moving towards the state line by about 5 o'clock p.m. So later on this afternoon and evening, that is when we're going to be seeing the snow. So let's break down the hour-by-hour forecast. A couple more hours of dry conditions that will be expected as we head towards the afternoon. So after school activities for those schools that did go on time today as scheduled should be smooth sailing by about 5 o'clock p.m. That is when we start to see some of those bursts of snow. I think those are going to be especially likely south and east of Toledo near the lakeshore, areas like Sandusky and Seneca counties over towards Erie and Huron counties, and then especially into northeast Ohio. That is where the snow is going to be the most prevalent with some of those bursts, and there may even be some gusty, strong winds that do occur. Now, the amounts are not going to look super impressive on the hour-by-hour forecast. As I mentioned earlier, just about a dusting to up to half an inch of accumulation. So not a ton of additional snowfall expected. However, it is going to be the timing coupled with the winds that really cause some issues. Other than a few flurries, I do expect dry conditions for the school bus. Most of those major roadways, smooth sailing, just wet, and the winds are going to be ramping up as well with that Arctic front. It is areas near Port Clinton and Sandusky that are going to see the strongest winds, gusting over 40 miles an hour at times. In the Toledo Metro, seeing those gusts ramp up as well. Northwest wind directions could even cause a little bit of blowing and drifting in rural areas. So keep in mind, it is going to be turning awfully windy as well. And then that travel forecast, mainly just wet for a couple more hours. So if you have any errands to run this afternoon, I'd recommend getting out between, say, now and about 4 to 5 p.m. before those snow bursts roll in right around 5 o'clock. And then the development of a few additional slick spots going to be possible overnight tonight through tomorrow morning as those temperatures plummet behind that Arctic front. And I do want to show you one last look of that hour-by-hour forecast. 5 p.m. we start to see those snow bursts still around freezing at that point, but then temperatures drop off in a hurry overnight tonight as we fall back into the teens. So that weather impact alert day is going to be continuing through the afternoon and the evening as we monitor that next weather impact that is the Arctic front that is going to be rolling on through. So I'm going to look at a few more of your comments here on YouTube, and then we'll sign off, and we'll have more coming up on air this evening. So Cheryl says, I think we got 3 to 4 inches. What I shoveled looked like that much just down the road. I'm guessing you mean Fulton County, Cheryl, but thanks for that report. There were some reports of about 3 inches of snow, mainly west and southwest of Toledo. That is where the sweet spot for those snow accumulations was. But I can tell you, the Toledo Metro did not get 3 to 4 inches. In fact, Lucas and Wood counties barely lucky to get an inch, but we'll have the latest data from Toledo Express Airport and some snowfall reports to share with you. That data normally comes in right around the 5 o'clock hour, so be sure to tune in to WTOL 11 this evening. Hello, Kayla. Good to have you with us. Again, snowfall amounts, we'll have more coming up on air, but they're highly variable. Really not a whole lot for the Metro, more to the west. And I'm guessing with some of those snow bursts that'll be rolling in this evening, the highest amounts are going to be near the lakeshore. So I'm going to pull up that snowfall amounts map one more time. Again, the highest total south and east of the Toledo Metro, areas like Norwalk, Fremont, Port Clinton, Sandusky, Tiffin, Bucyrus, and Upper Sandusky. That is where some of those heavier bursts of snow are going to be the most prevalent. That's not to say the Toledo Metro is going to squeak by without any snow, but it's really south and east of the Maumee River that I'm the most concerned about as far as a few additional bursts of snow. So thanks for tuning in on WTOL 11 Plus and on YouTube. Whenever we have a big weather event or a weather impact alert day, this is always a great way to break down that forecast in a little more depth. So I'm going to be signing off here, and we'll see you this evening coming up on WTOL 11 News.